share, show us your junk drawer.
Junk drawer.
Okay.
Which one is our junk drawer?
Do you have a junk drawer?
Yeah, we do.
They don't have a junk drawer.
No, we do. We have.
We're curious if you do or not.
Okay, no, we do. We like a junk drawer which has. I mean, everything is a junk drawer here, but a junk drawer which has like tools and stuff like that. Junk or like eatables.
Basically,
junk,
we want to see the mess. We want to see the messiest part of your house.
Okay. Okay. Well, why not show us all the house, the whole house?
Just the messiest part.
Sounds good.
The messiest part. Okay, Tanaya, why don't you take it? Messiest part. The garage. The garage, I guess. Can you see it all?
This is how we get down and dirty and personal in Alachua.
Okay, through the laundry room.
Through the laundry room. I would say the
I
garage.
love it.
And onto the garage. Show the shelf over here.
Show the shelves.
Nice.
We just moved Tulsi Baby in 2 days ago to beat the
Oh,
cold.
so
Yay,
this is
Tulsi!
actually temple room.
Temple room's a different
Your
place.
junkiest room is beautiful.
No, but this could be junky. This portion is the junkiest.
Got some old tennis balls here.
No, this is the junkiest.
I love how you have your personal cameraman. I need one of those.
Well, that's what a daughter is for, to assist the parents. And so she does an excellent job.
It's a camera lady. Hey, Shamadarshini. How are you doing?
This one here.
Shama Darshini, can you attest that this is in fact the junkiest area of the home?
Yeah, and you know why? Because it's my area. Back from when I was a kid, with all our arts and crafts and games, still here, decades later.
Yeah, this is like
Awesome.
over here. That's the junkiest place. That's why we cover it. You see, we keep cover it like this because so nobody can see the junk here. Anyway.
That's
We're fully
smart.
satisfied. Is everyone
Right.
satisfied?
Yes. Thank you so much for playing along.
Oh yes, yes. You want to look at our refrigerator?
No, it's good. We need to move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You know, I have to say, Mother Madhumati, I thought you were going to double dog us to share our junkiest area of the house. But since you didn't, we're moving on.
Okay.
We're taking notes for the next couple, so we'll tell them everything that happens here.
Thank you for being such good sports. So our first real question is, you know, we're very curious what life was like for each of you before Krishna. And we're wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your history leading up to coming into Krishna consciousness and what eventually brought you to Krishna.
You want to go first?
Okay. Well, I come from a family where my father, diplomat in the Indian embassy. And so that meant that we lived in one country for a few years and traveled. So when my father was born, when my father was here in America, that's when I was born here in Washington, D.C. And then then I lived in Zambia for a few years and in Italy and for a few years and in Libya and in India. I stayed in a boarding school there for 4 years. And then to Ireland for 5 years. So that was basically my life. And then in Ireland, that's where my devotional life started.
How old were you in Ireland?
Well, when I moved there in 1977, so I was 16 years old when I moved to Ireland. And then we as Indians, we went to the temple there in Ireland, in Dublin. But my Krishna consciousness started when I was 19. And there's a whole story how it happened and everything. Maybe you can tell something about your thing, and then I can go back to mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, there was a movie in the 50s called Rebel Without a Cause. You know that one? Yeah, Devotee knows that one. That'd be a little older, I think, to know that one. But anyway, it was a story about a young teenage guy that was looking for some meaning in life. And so that's what I was like before joining Krishna Consciousness, a rebel without a cause, except I was trying to conform, whereas in the movie, the hero was trying to break out of conformity. I was really into duty. And maybe it's because my father was a career military officer, or maybe it had to do with previous lives. But duty is what motivated me. And I came to a point in my life when I was going to a military school. I went to the United States Military Academy at West Point. And when I was there, which is the epitome of conforming, you had to conform there in that place. I wanted to break out of that place. And so I did. I left and was searching around for some kind of meaning and couldn't find it until I found the conformity of being a brahmachari in the Hare Krishna movement. And so that's what I was doing before joining up, as you say.
I thought you were going to tell about your family or anything like that. Or...
My family, well, as I said already, my father was a military officer, and he and my mother were both social workers. Actually, my mother was the first Black woman hired to be a social worker in Newcastle County, Delaware. And so service to others through social work, service to the country by being in the military, that was the atmosphere I grew up in. And so I sort of carry that mantle of duty principle. It's actually the only thing that keeps me around in Krishna Consciousness, duty. I have no taste otherwise.
Would you like to tell us something about your first introduction to Srila Prabhupada? I know individually it's very different, whether it was from the devotees or a book or meeting Srila Prabhupada himself. What was that like?
For me, I met Srila Prabhupada actually, not in person, but the first time when I went to the temple as not as a Hindu person, but as looking for the meaning of life. And so with that, when I went with that consciousness and I had gone to the temple the very first time, I saw a picture of Prabhupada on the wall. And I asked them, who is this person? And they told this devotee, Mandali Bhadra, he told me, this is our guru, Srila Prabhupada. I said, oh, I would like to meet him. And he said, no, he's gone. And I said, he's gone? And he said, yeah, he's gone. And so then he expressed some lamentation about that he was gone. And then I remember inquiring about, because I was such a new person and like trying to understand everything about Krishna consciousness. Then I said, oh, why are you lamenting or something? I don't know exactly, not those words. But then he's, in other words, one who is a God conscious person, or, they shouldn't feel happiness or distress or something like that. In my mind, I had my own conception about things. And then he explained to me that, no, that when the guru leaves, then it is something to, you're allowed to do so. You should do that or like that, So that was my first encounter of Prabhupada. But then the real encounter was reading Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. that really was really attracted me to Krishna consciousness, like wanting to give my life to the movement. And so that was, I was still hadn't joined in Ireland. I didn't join in Ireland. I was introduced to Krishna consciousness in Ireland, but that's the time when I read Prabhupada's Leelamrita and was really attracted to that. And so.
And Shesha Prabhu, where did you first meet the devotees?
I first met the devotees in Albany, New York. I was working there while I was in my period of searching for conformity. I was working as a preschool teacher in Albany, New York. And the devotees came from Buffalo, and they were chanting in the park on one Sunday afternoon. I hadn't planned to go to the park because when I was washing the dishes in my apartment, I cut my finger very badly and had it all bandaged up. But my friend said, come on, let's go. And I'm glad he encouraged me, because once I met the devotees, that was it. I was with them practically day and night until I moved into the temple myself. So in Albany, New York is the first time I met the devotees.
And
Nice.
how long between
so
when
I'm going to jump forward a little bit, and I want to.
You got two questions going at once. We got two of us. We can handle it.
Namamrita, can you hear me? I just want to ask if I can squeeze it in real quick. How long was it between when you met the devotees and when you moved into the temple?
Well, for me, it was, I don't know if you were asking me, him or me, but for me, it was a year. I started going to the temple in April of 81, and it took a whole year, not because the day I went to the temple, I was ready to join. I wanted to move in. And actually I went to the temple because prior to going to the temple, I was communicating over the phone and asking all my questions that I had. And then finally, when I was totally satisfied with all the answers to my questions, I went to the temple on my own and I was ready to move in. But then family members didn't allow me to do so. I came back home and I got locked in the house, and I was not allowed to go out of the house. And eventually, slowly, the doors opened and everything. And then when I wanted to move in, then my mother told me, no, I can't. So then eventually, it took me a year before I ran away from home. So I actually, because I was used to living from one country to another, so I actually ran away from one country to another country. So that's what I did. Middle of the night, basically, I ran away from Ireland to America. And I didn't tell my parents that I was going. So, so it took me a year to do so. But yeah.
Well, let me appreciate my wife a bit for doing that.
That's amazing.
Can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine, running away from home, given her parents' respectable position? Her father was in the Indian embassy, a respectable person, come from a good background in India. Yet she decided to throw all that to the wind. I mean, just like when Ram banished Sita, because someone just had the thought that Sita spent some time in another man's house. He put her away. What to speak of a young girl leaving home, going across the world and going to join a ashram. She really showed her devotion at that point. I appreciate that so much about her and her Krishna consciousness.
Well, you know what? It's not my fault that I ran away, because when Krishna plays his flute, I mean, what do you do? I mean, that whole 1 year was just like, all I could think about, just really all I could think for that whole year was that, oh, I just want to join. I just want to be with devotees. I just want to be with these people. I just want to give my life to, as I said, I read Srila Prabhupada's biography, and I just wanted to be with the devotees. So I just prayed every day. I would pray, let my brother be a devotee. Let him become a devotee. Maybe he'll help me to run away. Maybe he'll help me to join in. Krishna, who listens to all our desires, so he did, didn't he? Yeah. And it was only because of Varuna, finally, he's the one who slapped me on my face that I wanted to join. And he's the one who locked me in the house. But he's the one who eventually actually, helped me to run away from home. But it took a whole year, but it was worth it. It's worth it all. Anyway. Hare Krishna.
It's an incredible story. And it takes a special person to answer Krishna's flute call. Not many people do that. So you said, what can you do if Krishna plays his flute? But most of us wouldn't do that. It's incredible.
Anyway.
Shri Prabhu, would you like to say something about that for yourself before we move on?
Well, basically, when I met the devotees in that park one Sunday afternoon, in one sense, I joined up right then and there because I was a ripe fruit. They picked me, and then I just started hanging out with them day and night. I would sleep in my apartment, but even at my job, I would drive to my work. On my way to work, I'd drive by the temple and pick up the devotees. They would drop me off at my work, and then they would come and pick me up after work was over. I'd go back home, take a shower, and go back to the temple for evening association with them. So I was just basically living in the temple. I don't know what they were doing with my car out there all day. It could have been robbing banks or whatever. But I gave them my car and just stayed with them. They eventually had to leave Albany because the center wasn't going so well. And they went to Washington, D.C., and so a couple of weeks after they left, I also packed my bags and went to Washington so I could be with the devotees.
Speaking of your, do we have Namamrita back?
Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I've had a pretty bad connection there, so I'm hoping it's not going to be too difficult. But if you hear me, I'm ready to do my part whenever it's time.
I just want to ask really quick. My husband, Leela Kishore, mentioned that he had heard a little bird that Shesha Prabhu, your father, had said, well, if you're going to become a Hare Krishna, become the best Hare Krishna. Is that true?
Actually, I had an interesting exchange with my father. Naturally, my parents were a little reluctant for me to be involved in the Hare Krishna movement. They thought it was just some fad that I was going through because I was in a down period or whatever. But I told them that I wanted to go and with the devotees in Washington, D.C. after they left Albany. And my mother, along with the two of her sisters, came to visit me, and they were pleading with me, don't go, don't go. And so I told them, okay, I won't go. So I didn't for another 3 weeks or so. But this time I had a different strategy. And that was to talk to my father and tell him that, look, in a man-to-man way, just tell him, this is something that I have to do in my life. It's a calling of some kind or something, I don't know exactly, but I have to go down this avenue and see where it leads me in life. And he could actually appreciate that as a man-to-man talk. And he drove me to the airport the next day. And actually,
Wow.
on the flight, I know that the relationship had entered a new phase as some tears rolled down my cheeks as we were flying away. I think probably for him too, because I was his first son. I bear his name. We have the same name, except he's junior and I'm the third. But here I was going to do something different. And yeah, he encouraged me like that to be the best Hare Krishna you can be.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's really such a sweet story about your relationship with your father. Thank you for sharing that.
Totally
So
different than mine. I had
I'm
to run
going
away.
to yeah.
Nobody was there to take me to the airport.
So
But I was waiting for you.
Oh.
speaking of which, I want to get to the juicy part here. Tell us about how you both met.
Okay, it's a pretty simple story. A historical power move by the ISKCON management. I wanted to get married.
It was back in the 80s, I'm assuming.
Right. I wanted to get married, or I needed to get married, either way. I was the temple president, so I had my choice. Whoever I wanted to pick, I could marry them.
Oh, wow. I did not expect that to be the answer.
Are you all right?
So I picked Madhumati.
And Mother Madhumati, how did you feel about being picked?
Well, you want to hear my side of the story? Okay, that's his side of the story. My side of the story was so different.
I'm sure.
Satsang Raj was, we used to have in Philadelphia, we had a BTG house because BTG was there. And Satsang Raj would come there to have BTG meetings. So Satsang Raj was visiting there, and I get somebody tells me, Satsang Raj wants to see you at the BTG house. Now, do remember, I was just there, I came there in May. So this was within 3 months or 4 months.
3 or 4 months.
I was a new bhaktin, really new. Everything was new to me. The country was new, everything was new. So now Satsang Raj is asking me. I was so afraid that I did something wrong. I was just so nervous. So I go there to the BTG house. Somebody drives me there. So Satsang Raj asks me, he starts talking about Sesha Prabhu. Now you have to understand, Sesha Prabhu to me, he had just become the temple president maybe a couple of weeks ago or something. And if you know Sesha Prabhu, I used to make fun of him in the ladies' ashram, the way he talked and the way he walked. I used to call him like a military guy, because we used to have an intercom system in our temple, because it was a big temple. So he would say, so-and-so, pick up the phone. So I would just make fun of him all the time. So he's
really? Sesha Prabhu, that's so unexpected.
I can't imagine it, really.
I still make fun of him, but that was, anyway. So Satsang Raj started talking about Sesha Prabhu, and I was like so dumb. I didn't know why he's talking about him. And then he started saying that he wants to change his ashram. First, I didn't know what that language was. I was new. And then he started saying, okay, so he wants to get married.
Right.
Like, okay, I didn't know what does that have to do with me? And then he said, would you get married to him? And I was like, what? Then I was just like shocked. And I didn't know what to say. And then I said, but I have to ask my parents. So after I ran away from home and did everything, when it comes to marriage, it's the parents. Yes. I said, I have to ask my parents. And then Satsang Raj said, well, you know what they're going to say. I said, yeah, they're going to say no. So then he said, but prior to that, he said to me, you're going to make the decision. You can't ask anybody. And I'm like, I can't ask anybody? How can I make a decision about getting married and not ask anybody? Then he said, yeah, you can't, because I asked him, who can I ask? He said, you can't ask anybody. So then I said, well, I can't make a decision like this. So then he said, well, then you can ask Mulika. our Mulika, our Muli here, because she was visiting from New York. And anyway, so then I said, okay. So he said, okay, you can ask her. I said, okay. So I went that evening. It was late at night. I went in the evening. I asked Mulika. I said, Satsang Raj asked me to marry Srila Prabhu. And she said to me, I still remember she was sitting there. She said to me, Srila Prabhu is a nice devotee. Then she said, whatever the spiritual master says, you should do. I said, oh, okay, that's simple. Okay, so I wrote a letter to Satsang Raj right that evening. And I said, Mulika said that whatever the spiritual master says I should do, so I will do. I'll get married. And that was it.
Wow.
But just quickly telling you about the culture and me, and you're talking about getting to know us. After I said yes to Satsang Raj, I started thinking, oh, I have to get the blessings of my parents. I can't do this without asking their blessings. And so I thought, okay, I have to do that. I just can't get married unless I get their blessings. So I had Srila Prabhu call my parents. We had kind of through writing letters and whatever, my parents accepted that I was there at, so this was like 4 months I had run away. And there was also a kidnapping attempt from their side, and which failed. And so that was taken care of. So it was at a stage where it's almost like they accepted that this is what I'm doing with my life. And so then I had him call my parents, who were in Denmark at that time. So he called my father, and my father said, he asked that, can your daughter get married? I'm asking your blessings for that. And he said, first question was, is he Indian? Is he Indian? He didn't know that it was him. He said, is he Indian? And he said, no. Then he said, no. He doesn't have my son. And then he hung up the phone. And then I was like, oh my God. I was thinking, I don't know what to do. I said yes to my spiritual master, and my parents are saying no to me. Then I said, okay, let me call my mother. Maybe she will be. So then I called right away. I called, and she picked up the phone because my father wasn't going to pick up the phone, I guess. So she picked up the phone. So then I started talking to her, and whatever I said to her. And she said, oh, how old is he? Oh, he's 10 years older than you. No, this is too much. And so basically she wasn't giving the blessings. And so then I was just like, I was in my mind thinking, how am I going to face my spiritual master? And my mother told me, she said, no, she said no. Then I thought quickly, I'm thinking, I thought, okay, that's fine. The only way that I can please my parents and face my spiritual master is to just come out and say, I won't get married. And my idea was, when I came to spiritual life, was like Mirabai. Mirabai, that's how Indian girls think about never getting married. And although she was married, but whatever. And I was thinking, I wasn't planning to get married, and this just came along. So not a big thing. I just want to get married. And that way I can show my face to both, And so then I told my mother, I said, Mom, okay, if you're not going to give me blessings, not a problem. I will not get married to him, but do know that I will not get married at all. So this is, I won't get married to him, but I won't get married at all. And this is, I feel fine. And then my mother said, no, I can't do that to you. I can't do that to you. You have to get married. So she said, you have my blessings. And so she gave me the blessings. And I am so happy today. And I feel like I got the blessings of my parents. And I feel that's why, I really do feel that I got the blessings of my spiritual master, but I also got my blessings of my parents. And I feel like that's why, Krishna is kind of has given, a good marriage and everything, and if I hadn't gotten the blessings of my parents, I think things would have been different for me. But anyway, so that's my part of my story.
I find that all so interesting because, I look up to you honestly as I can't think of such an exemplary couple as yourselves. and it's just so fascinating that it started in such a rocky way in so many ways. You know, with the trying to get the blessings of your parents, and you know, that you never expected that that's what the conversation was going to be about with your spiritual master. Really interesting. And so you had joined the temple pretty recently. You said it had just been a couple of weeks when that conversation took place.
3-4 months.
Okay, all right. So it was still okay. So it was really part of the original experience in a way. But I was going to ask, you know, was there some sort of a transition still? Like Shesha Prabhu, you were a brahmachari prior to that the whole time, and tell us about that transition to, you know, now you're married and you're kind of taking on this new ashram.
Well, the way our marriage worked, it was, as I said, it was a marriage from the old Hare Krishna days, where we were living in the temple and doing everything in the temple. So marriage meant I finally had a confidential, good assistant to work with me in all the temple functions. And so she immediately became the treasurer, the head pujari, counselor to all the women, and a host of other services that fell in between the cracks. And so we didn't have time to adjust so much as we did. All of our time was taken up by doing our service at the temple. And I think that
I didn't even have a room. We got married and I'm still in the brahmachari ashram.
during the day, when I would be having meetings in my office, there was a big closet in the room where I had my office. And so there was no space in the ashram where she could go between duties as a treasurer and a head pujari. So she slept in the closet during the time I was having my meetings in the office. So that was the initial stages of our marriage. But you know, service was our duty, and that's what we both were dedicated to, and it worked out, you know, in a lot of good ways, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, then let me ask you this: jumping into the future, when did you transition from that kind of an ashram lifestyle together to more of a householder situation, which you currently are in now?
It's a good question.
And how did that transition happen?
That's a good question because it follows right on with what I was saying. When she came to me and said, "I'm getting sick, I'm overworked, I can't do it anymore," that's when the change had to happen. And that's when we planned to transition out of being the temple president and ultimately towards moving to Los Angeles, where I went to law school.
Gotcha.
And did you live outside of the temple community while you were in law school? Like, was that your first time living outside of the ashram?
Well, I was concerned moving to Los Angeles about all the time I'd have to spend in school, and she'd be on her own.
We were in Philadelphia at that time when we were at the temple. So from Philadelphia, then we moved to LA.
And if you know Los Angeles community, there's apartments all up and down the street. The temple has them. So we got an apartment just next to the temple apartments, and it was just a few minutes walk to the temple. So she had the temple and quickly made friends out in Los Angeles with the devotees. And so she had association, and I spent 3 years laboring in law school.
Had that been your desire to become a lawyer? Was that a latent plan that you had?
No, as I said, I had to think fast when she told me she couldn't do all these services anymore.
You thought fast and you thought, I'm going to go to law school. That's amazing.
Well, he was thinking, what should we had moved out of the temple for 1 year. BTG was supporting us. He was taking care of the BTG. So we were living in an apartment in Philadelphia. And then we started thinking that we have to have a family. And so we were discussing what should we do. And I remember Nagraj and Pranada were living opposite in the same apartment building. They were living opposite us. And so we sat down there and we were discussing what we're going to do. And he was thinking about going to law school, and we didn't know whether we should do it or not because it was considered Maya to go back to school, So that was a big decision on our part to think that he's going to go back to school. I mean, that was a big, big Maya, And so we actually flipped a coin. We had a coin that had Ganesh on one side and Om or something on the other side. And we flipped the coin, and that's how we found that we did it 3 times, and twice it said to go to law school. So that's how we made the decision that we're going to go to law school. I don't know if Nagaraj and Prana remember, but that's how it actually
I have to say I love this because I feel like, when we talk one-on-one with each other, we do get to know each other a little bit, but for the most part, there's like an oversimplification of the history of the life of devotees that is nothing shy of completely adventurous and a little crazy. It's just wonderful to hear this story. I love it.
So would you tell us a little bit, maybe kind of briefly, but it's really interesting to know. But I do want to make sure we don't run out of time because we have so many interesting questions we want to get to. But could you just give us a brief summary of the services that you have performed from that original time when you met, let's say, and you were temple president up to the current time?
Well, we moved to Los Angeles because I became a trustee of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, headquartered in Los Angeles. So it went well with going to school and also doing that service. So after having been a temple president in Potomac, Maryland, Washington, D.C. temple, then Philadelphia, then involved with Back to Guided magazine as a managing editor, trustee of the BBT in North America, and then I became a GBC member at the request of Virabhahu Prabhu, who was living in Los Angeles at that time. And so the various GBC services since that time.
But he was also asking before that library party and all that.
Before, when I was a brahmachari? No, I think he's asking afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just for this, I mean, I know you've done time to curious from the time you were the temple president, when you two met, up until what you're currently doing, and that's for both of you too.
Oh, well, you already heard that when I got married, I was, prior to that, I was just going to college and preaching. But after I got married, did helping with the management, and then when we went to LA, and that's when I had both the girls. I remember that was a big change for me because, again, the conception was, at least my conception was to do service at the temple is the thing and everything else is Maya. And so when I was pregnant with Braja, I had some problem with pregnancy a little bit. And so Sesha Prabhu told me, this is your service. You may have to stop doing the services at the temple, because I used to dress Rukmini Dwarkadish a few times a day, and those plates were so heavy. The outfits were so heavy, and we would carry them, and I think that's why I had some problems. So I had to adjust my thinking to becoming a grihasta. So it was a whole adjustment, but I always respected him and I accepted whatever he said. Not that necessarily I agreed to it, but I knew that.
It's a good way to say it.
I hardly ever agree to what he says, but I respect him so much that I always do. I think that, so what he told me, that this is your service. It was
funny. I hear my wife laughing in the background.
It was hard for me to swallow, but I accepted it. And I'm happy that I did, because when he told me to do that, that this is your service, then I said, okay, this is my service to Krishna. I don't know how this is my service to Krishna, but taking care of these kids is not even born right now, and it's my service to Krishna. Anyway, so I took that thing seriously, and I'm happy. So that's, and then after that, I've always taught. So even in LA, I was taught in the Gurukul there. I tutored devotee kids there, and same thing here. When I moved to Alachua, also I taught at the ashram, and my services is mainly doing preaching activities and teaching and mentoring like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you're pointing out this, that it was hard for you to accept that taking care of your child was your service to Krishna. And I know I've struggled with that concept, and that could be a whole topic in itself, but I appreciate you sharing that. What has been your favorite or your most challenging service throughout the years? And maybe it's the same one, I don't know, but what would you say has been a very challenging service and a very fulfilling service?
Challenging service. Well, I think that in Krishna consciousness, we have a lot of high expectations of ourselves, of other people. Of course, we're doing such exalted work, and so maybe that's where that comes from. But along with that, along with being in a position of leadership or a position of respect, as you spoke of us a few minutes ago, I think the hardest thing is actually being able to meet the expectations that people have, to actually be what they want us to be. I think that's hard. I mean, at least I can speak for myself. I'm a conditioned soul just like anybody else. And although I try, and I find it difficult when people put me in positions or say things which, challenge me. So it's a challenge in that way to meet the expectations of others.
Yeah. Well, if it helps, you've been a mentor to me, and I can say that whenever you've let me see these little glimpses of your own humanity, and like you said, you're a conditioned soul, to me that has been so nurturing, because maybe you think pressure we see as this topmost example, flawless couple. And I always find it interesting that for me personally, I always get a lot of encouragement when other devotees share a little bit of their vulnerabilities or struggle with this and that, because it just makes it all so much more real. So it pains me to know that that's been a difficult position for you to be in, and I really appreciate you sharing that. I would say that that other part of you can also be just as inspiring, and that's what we're trying to do here. we want to know you on all levels.
Yeah, well, don't take it that I don't want to try to help anyone because of my own difficulty or struggles in meeting the expectations. Still, I will do the best I can and put myself out for any devotee that requests or needs help from me.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. You've been you've been that role model and also a personal mentor to so many of us in this community. And I know I've benefited from it myself, and I know so many others who you've really given your heart to, and both of you. Thank you so much for that.
I can tell you one little thing, just on my own initiative here without being asked. It's a little secret of happiness that I found in the Grihastha Ashram. And that is, it's Shastric as well. Like the Pandavas. Do you know who managed the money in the family of the Pandavas? Does anybody know? Draupadi actually was the manager of the money. She managed the household.
That was going to be my guess.
Because that's what is the secret, I think, for stability and happiness in our marriage, is that she manages the money. And
because let me tell you one thing. Because one time we were in LA and
she also doesn't let you forget it.
For something, and he said, something happened, and he said, I will manage the money. Or no, something happened. I said, no, okay, you manage the money. So I didn't like or something. So I said, you manage the money. So he started managing the money. And oh my God, our credit card bill went high up, you know. And me, from who I am as a, maybe because I'm from India, I don't know. But I don't like credit cards. I like credit cards as long as you have money to pay on the credit cards, you pay, but don't. And so he did that for some time. And then he came to me and he said, okay, Madhumati, you should manage the money. And so so since then, I manage the money.
It knocks the male ego down a bit, which I think is important.
But I will tell something. I will tell something to you all. Like he took the initiative to say something, so I'm just going to tell you something. You know, it's just family here, so we'll tell you.
Yes. Us and the whole internet world.
We currently have 2,475 live viewers.
That includes podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
Well, this is something to tell you that what happened one time as far as money is concerned, and I learned something about money. One time, what happened? This was a few years ago, and I was managing money and everything. And this was quite some, maybe 10 years ago or something. You were still working for the Gurukul. You forgot to tell you that you were principal. He was living here and was principal of the Gurukul in Vrindavan. Don't know how that works, but anyway, he was.
Wow.
And so one year he said, oh, he was going to buy the ticket to go there. I said, Prabhu, we don't have any money. We don't have any money for you to go. He said, but I have to go. I said, why don't you ask the Gurukul? If they're asking you to come. I mean, GBC we accept. The GBC, I know they always have. The GBC, by the way, they pay their own ticket to go to do their service. Now with the Gurukul, sometimes they would pay for him to come. So I said to him, so why don't you ask the Gurukul to pay you? He said, Gurukul doesn't have any money. Then I said, but we also don't have money. And if you need to go and do service, you can ask them. And then he said, but they don't have money. I said, but we don't have money either. He said, but we'll put it on the credit card. And I said, you can't put things on the credit card. Then he said to me, Madhumati, where do you think any of our money comes from? And I just heard, I could see he said, you're telling me that I can't go and do my service because we don't have money? He said, who do you think? What my service to Srila Prabhupada? You're telling me I can't do my service to Srila Prabhupada because of money? Who do you think, how do you think any money comes in the house? It is because my service to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gives us everything. And so don't ever say to me that I can't do my service to Srila Prabhupada. And he never tells me anything like that. And I mean, he's not a person who opens, he doesn't tell me what to do and what not to do. Let's put it this way. I have full independence of doing whatever I want to do, basically. But there has been maybe 2 or 3 times in my life that he has said something. And when he told me that changed my understanding of money. So although I manage the money, but that really helped me to see a different light about what money is. So I just wanted to share that with you. That was something very...
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Thank you for
It's
for
really
sharing that reminder.
it's really interesting that you brought up money and how important it is, because I just heard recently Vishaka Prabhu was speaking about Yamuna Devi, and she had said something along the lines of, we are not qualified to go back to the spiritual world until we understand how to use Krishna's energy properly, and money is Krishna's energy. And it was a huge light bulb for me about how important this part of our lives is, the financial aspect of our life, and how we need to completely integrate it with our spiritual principles. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a lot of freedom. I said, I have to tell you one more thing, and then I'll let you speak. Then I'll let you ask questions. One of the things that in my marriage, that soon after I got married, maybe it must be maybe 2-3 weeks, he was saying something, and I was for the first time I was disagreeing with him, but I was hesitant to disagree with him because I was newly married and whatever, And so he said to me, Manumati, being a chaste wife doesn't mean that you agree with me. You have your own opinion, and I have mine. So it's totally fine. You can express yourself like that, So that was it for me. I flew after that.
It's not complaining.
And you're still flying high to this day.
I am.
It's wonderful. A true gentleman. It's wonderful. Yeah. We really wanted to ask. We have so many questions, but we're flying by this time. So I want to ask about raising your daughters. So you have 2 wonderful daughters, Shamadarshini and Brajmandali, and it's interesting because you raised them both in modern American culture, in the spiritual culture of the Hare Krishna movement, and you're both coming from different backgrounds culturally previous to meeting one another. So what has that been like for you over the years? What was that journey like for you? And what can you share with us, maybe a tidbit of wisdom from your experiences raising your children?
Well, I can just say a little bit, but she did most of the work in raising the children. But just as a person, I mean, I like children anyway. I like children. So yeah, I never once thought of having children and raising them as any kind of burden. And so, especially when we got these 2, Vaikuntha Basis come in our lives, it was.
I don't know about that, but no.
Well, from my perspective, that's what I'm speaking.
Aww.
I will say that, I will confess, and I have to do it because Braja was just here with our grandson for 2 months, and everyone was changing the diapers, husband and wife, Braja and her husband.
That's it.
Chaitanya were changing the diapers, but I never changed any diapers. They didn't help my wife in that regard. So that's probably one regret that I have about raising the kids. But anyway, they were wonderful, and they still are wonderful, Vaikuntha Basis, and I feel honored to be associated with them as their father. I think they felt that love, and so that's made raising them for my part.
Well, but I have to say that
Shesha Prabhu, it's never too late to learn how to change a diaper.
Yes, it is.
For me, I think it was very important for me that they felt that the temple was their home. I wanted them to feel that. So At the temple, when you're talking about to raising kids, I think is take advantage of the temple. That's what I did. And being at the temple, temple is such a good place to babysit kids because you don't have to do anything. There's kirtan going on. They love it. They love to be around people. And so literally a few hours of my day was automatically taken care by the temple environment, just being babysitted by everybody else. So I think for me, that was the way that I really wanted them to be at home at the temple. And so I brought them every day. So basically how I raised the kids, I think the devotees helped me raise the kids. The devotees preached to them by giving them hearing classes and everything. I never preached to them at home. That was not my thing. I never told them you chant your rounds and you do this and you do. Let everybody do the dirty work, you know. Let them hear from everybody else. And but at home we just set an example. And talking about our cultural differences, that was very good. He trusted me and he let me do whatever I wanted to do, so to speak, with the kids. Except he didn't like me when I would yell at the kids. Then I would be called in the office. Why are you yelling at the kids, you know? I mean, can you imagine the husband being around there while you're training up the kids, you know? I mean, kids test you, you know, they drive you nuts. But you know, the father can't see that. The father normally goes away and he comes home and it's all quiet. But no, in my case, he was in the other room. So if I yell at the kids, he could hear it, you know? And anyway, so I think to me, it was important that they learn the culture that I came from. So I taught them Hindi and, you know, taught them things. Most important thing was respect. Of all the things, whether spiritual culture or culture that I come from, culture he comes from, for me, the most important thing was the kids learn how to respect others. And so that was something that really inculcated in them, that there was absolutely no criticism of other devotees, no criticism. There was never any criticism amongst us talking about any other devotees, always talking good about other people. And that was the most important thing for me, is to train them with that. And example, getting up early in the morning, chanting our rounds and whatever, going to the temple or what. You know. So we did our part and all the other devotees did their part. So much love they got from everybody else. So that really helps. So, yeah. And I see that the younger generation does that. I see how younger generation, they're such nice, I see that kind of joint family kind of thing that they have amongst each other, is that they have groups of devotees, they have their own groups, and it's such a nice atmosphere I see amongst the young people, that they are very, very much about helping everybody, raising everybody's kids, so to speak, in their group. So that's nice.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you this question, and I'm going to ask you to answer in one sentence for each one of you. It's one of my favorite questions to ask devotees. Why do you practice Krishna consciousness today? Or what keeps you going in Krishna consciousness?
It's easy for me. I already said it earlier in the interview. It's duty, out of duty. Duty means that you have some obligation. You receive something.
One sentence.
Okay, one sentence. See?
No. You answered in one word. You answered in one word. You did great. So please feel free to elaborate.
No. One sentence.
You're trying to trick me, aren't you? You did one word, but then you're trying to do a whole class on it, right?
Tomorrow morning.
For me, it's two words. It's gratitude and fun.
That's wonderful.
Gratitude and fun.
Great. Thank you. And I would love to elaborate on these topics, but I do want to keep us going because there's a few more juicy questions we want to get to, and we want to have a quick Q&A at the end too. So in the practice of bhakti yoga, it's often suggested, and a lot of devotees do this, to have a sacred space in your home. And I was hoping, since you have your wonderful daughter, camera lady, with you today, would you mind sharing with all of our viewers what is that sacred space that you keep in your home, and what does it mean to you?
Go ahead, you take it.
The question, okay. You want to take it? Yeah. This is our sacred space. Is Giriraj is here in the center of our lives, and
Jai Giriraj.
And he is
wow.
He is the center of our lives. Actually, he is our center of our lives. Our life starts with him, worshiping him. Srila Prabhupada is the pujari, and we have this sacred space for last 29 years now. His worship goes every day, every morning. Takes him an hour and a half to do his puja in the morning, and our lives are around him. He is the center of our life, yeah.
So for non-devotee viewers, Giriraj is the Lord in the form of a stone that's been taken from the famous and worshipable Govardhan Hill in India. And so this is the form of the Lord that the two of you worship in your home.
And so everything that's we make, we offer to him, and chant our japa, our meditation is our meditation room, and our library room here, all our spiritual literature is so much to study, so much to read.
This is something of interest. You want to go hold it up here? This big picture of Prabhupada used to be in the lobby at 55th Street Temple in Manhattan.
Oh,
and
I've heard so much about the 55th Street Temple.
Yeah, well, this large photo of Srila Prabhupada, which I believe was taken in Central Park, used to be in the lobby, and someone other, he came to us and
Ragatika gave to us.
He stands above us and looks down in our sacred space here.
He's still looking
That's
at us.
Beautiful. That's such a famous photo. I never realized that was in Central Park.
I do believe that's where it is. I have to check with the New York devotees, old New York devotees like Charat. You would know.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your sacred space in your home.
Thank you.
Amrita Kelly, I'm going to skip the next two questions. They've kind of been covered. You want to go on to yours?
Sure.
Actually, that's been covered too. So I guess we're down to the last one perhaps here.
Okay. Well, we didn't. Okay. Yeah. I'll just skip. I'm like Shesha Prabhu. I'll give one word and then elaborate for an hour. So I'm just gonna go for it here. You recently became grandparents, and you're seeing, congratulations, and you're seeing a new generation of bhakti practitioners, of devotees that are coming up. And we're wondering how you feel about the health of our movement going forward, and any advice that you have for us, the future generations, to carry on Srila Prabhupada's mission and his love in the world.
Well, I think that that question can be answered differently by different groups of devotees or communities of devotees in different places in the world. But as far as Alachua is concerned, I think that
Interesting.
I think I see a very bright future because so many wonderful devotees and their families are settling here, settling for the long term. When we were married, in those days, devotees moved around so much. I think until we came to Alachua, we had never lived any place, actually in our entire lives, because my father was in the military, her father was in the foreign service, which meant you moved every 2 or 3 years. So neither one of us had lived in one place for more than 3 years at a time until we moved to Alachua. Now we've been here 20, 22, 23 years. And during that time, we've seen the development of the schools here and the families here. And now we're seeing young devotee families moving here, getting homes. It's becoming a place that has the stability of a Grihastha community. And I think that that's a good sign for the future, because it means the young children will continue coming. And the senior members of the community can help guide the younger members. And that fresh enthusiasm won't get dissipated in other kinds of activities or struggles in life, because we're all working together as a community here.
I also wanted to add that we used to live in the ashram, so everybody did service together. But now everybody lives in their own place. And so I think something like all of you, your team has come up together with doing this thing. I think it's very, very important, very good, because this will help everybody to know each other more. That was automatically done so when we lived together in one building or something like that. And so I think when there is that kind of coming close together with these kinds of things, then devotees can do projects. May not be able to do daily service at the temple like we used to do or like that, but have different projects that they can come together for an Alachua community. So, okay, this group of people can take care of this project this month or this like that. And in that way, it builds the community, it gets services taken care at the temple. The temple remains the center. I think that's a very important part, no matter how our community grows, that we keep the center, because I mean, yeah, Viraj is our center, but ultimately the center is Radha Shyam Sundar, Krishna Balaram, Gaur Nitai. They are the centers. So all our services be thought in that way, where you do offerings together as groups and as a service. So different than what it was before, but with the same principle, the same everything. So it's a good future. I think that is, in Alachua, we're doing very good, with the CDI happening, but one of the results of CDI is this program and so many other programs. So so we have in good hands. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all
so
your
much.
services.
All right. Well, just when you thought it was over, here comes the hot seat segment of the show.
It's getting hot. So we are about to do questions and answers.
Yes, we're almost there.
Yes, we are. Our wonderful, faithful audience, we love you. Thank you so much for being here. We're about to take your questions now. But first, the hot seat.
So, Mother Madhumati, putting you on the hot seat. You are such an inspiration, such a wonderful speaker. You've been a teacher. Yet, you've only started to give class at the Alachua Temple about a year ago. Why is that?
Well, I think it's my own. I was asked many, many times to give class before. It could be because from the very early days, we weren't encouraged to do so. that could be a reason. Not that I desired to do that. I never desired to give class. So basically, that wasn't part of the program. And so even when I was asked many times, I didn't want to because I was nervous. So basically, if you're trained young, then it's easier. But if you're not trained young, then it becomes hard. So
so your main reason for saying no was because you felt nervous? Is that right?
Because one thing I didn't desire. I really didn't have any desire. I just loved hearing. I never really thought that I want to give class. It never came to my mind. And when I was asked, I'm like, but I don't really want, I didn't desire. So I would say it's mainly because I didn't desire to give class. But then when everybody would ask me, then when I would think about it, then I was nervous about giving class. Like, I don't know what to say. I know how to give class. I don't know anything. And Srila Prabhupada would always say to me, what do you mean you don't know anything? You've been practicing for so many years. Just say what you have. But so between not having the desire and feeling totally satisfied hearing from others, and then when finally thinking, okay, I should, and then I was a little nervous. So then it took me a little time to do so.
It's wonderful to hear that, because those are reasons why all of us are hesitant, I think, to give class. But your classes are incredible, and we have so much to learn from each other, from each different devotee who lives out Krishna consciousness in such a unique way. It's such a blessing to hear each other speak. So thank you so much for coming into that for us.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words.
And Padmavati says, I am profoundly grateful for Mother Madhumati and Shesha Prabhu's classes. So there you go. Okay, Shesha Prabhu, so your hot seat question is, when you look back over the course of your life in Krishna consciousness, is there a mistake that comes to your mind? And it could either be just something from your very personal experience, or something that happened to our movement or within our movement. And what have you learned from that mistake that you can impart to us tonight?
Well, again, I'll just stay on the same theme. You asked why Madhumati had not given class. And I assume the underlying question is, have women been discriminated against and not given the same opportunities as men in Krishna consciousness movement? And I think that that's true. I don't know that that we have not been wrong to deny certain opportunities for women simply based on the fact that they're women. So I think we need to look at that. And we are looking at it in various ways right now, particularly with the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru issue that the GBC has been grappling with. It's interesting how the GBC has grappled with it. On 3 separate occasions, after extensive discussions, the GBC approved women to accept disciples in ISKCON. But the actual implementation of that has been debated and ruled in favor on 3 separate occasions. The implementation of it hasn't been affected to the present moment. I think that that situation needs to be rectified.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for acknowledging that. And it's such an important topic. It's a hot topic for the hot seat segment.
Well, you know who covers a lot of these things is Nam Ras. He's had some interesting talks about racism,
Yeah.
Other issues. What are they called? Off the boat, not off the boat. Yeah, what was it? Anyway, the different issues that they bring up. They're all hot seat. You guys have been.
They are all hot seat episodes. They really are.
Yeah. No, and we're very grateful to Namras for bringing up all these topics. I think the world of Zoom meetings that we've entered in since the pandemic has just opened up all these doors for very important conversations. So yeah, I've been following a lot of these different talks. So I think we should get to our Q&A. I see we have
can we just do a quick round of applause? We did it!
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
You're a
audience.
great team. All four of you. Good.
I can just acknowledge my friend Gohari, who's sitting there. Nice to see you here.
That's Gohari Herbert Brisak. Haribol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we have. Who else do we have on the Zoom call? We have Ragatmika Prabhu, Braja Mandali, your daughter, Tulsi Rani, Padmavati. Thank you all so much for joining the call. And any of you who are on Facebook, YouTube, feel free. Now's the moment to shoot your questions to our guest speakers. And if anyone wants to unmute their microphone on Zoom, you're welcome to speak as well. You're going to have to unmute first.
Okay, we do have a question from Bhagavati. Would you like to ask it yourself, Bhagavati Prabhu? She's still.
So maybe it would help. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I wasn't unmuted until now. It was just a silly question when they were talking about Philadelphia. And I think it's in the chat. So it said, we used to hear, this is way back when, we used to hear that Sesha Prabhu had a hard time fasting on Ekadasi and that Madhumati used to cook a full meal for him in the early morning before Mangalarti. So is that true or was that a devotee urban myth?
Look at the face.
That's a myth.
That's a myth.
Who started that rumor?
I was just a hearer of it.
That's Mother Bhagavati, are you trying to start a rumor?
I think I read about it once in Back to Godhead.
Okay, go on to the other questions now.
Well, I saw Gohari Prabhu trying to speak. Can you unmute yourself, Prabhu? There we go.
I remember that picture very well in the lobby of 55th Street. And I want to know how Sesha wound up with it because I wanted it.
Ragatmika, who is on the Zoom right now, she's the one who gave it to. I think she was moving from LA, and I think that's how we got it.
And Ragatmika and Kanapur, they gave it to us in LA when they left LA because it was too big to carry. We've had them since that time.
Yeah, so we brought it. I just love that picture, and especially to put on the mantle there in the temple room. It's just so nice. Offer the artik, and then I always see Prabhupada is like looking down, looking at us, and sometimes like I feel like he's giving blessings. Sometimes it looks like he's mad. So all different, different emotions that I'm going through. Anyway,
I just want to say thank you for Sesha for all the years of your friendship and love, and I've always loved you from day one. So.
Thank you so much, Corey. It means a lot from someone who's served Prabhupada since the early days in the 60s. It's It's special. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ragatmika Prabhu, we can hear you.
No, she's muted right now.
She was just she was just trying to speak, so I think she'll. There she goes.
I got that picture from Narayan. I don't know how, but and I can't remember how long I had it in my possession. Definitely when we moved.
Raga, can you speak up a little bit? We cannot hear you clearly.
Now can you hear me? Am I?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I don't know how long I had that picture in my possession, but when I think it was when we moved from Los Angeles and you two were still in Los Angeles. Isn't that when I gave that picture to you?
Yes.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. And I got that from Narayan. I asked him to I don't know how I got it and what the circumstances were. I remember being there in front of his house in Los Angeles and arranging that. Anyway, Hare Krishna. I have a question. Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Both of your daughters have excellent service moods. What do you attribute that to? How would you, both of you, explain that?
Well, they have a lot of good examples in their life, including yourself and your good husband.
Hello.
Yeah.
No, come on. Come on now. Get
Come on, that's true.
Get to the real point.
I give him my real point. She has to give hers now.
Okay, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, what he's saying is true, and I had mentioned to you earlier. I had mentioned that earlier too. That it is the devotees who actually help raise these kids. But one part is important is the service attitude that children see in amongst the parents. So if the children are seeing that there's a good service attitude, let's put it, yes, we're all equal, but yes, there is a head of the family. At least I believe that. Being a little more traditional, I believe that there is a head in the family, whether it's the mother or the father, but there is a head. And in this family, the head of the family is the father, although I am his boss, but still he's the head of the family. How that works, I don't know, but this is how it is. So let's put it, he's in name, at least the head of the family. And so they saw my service attitude towards him. And I think that makes a big difference for the kids to see that the mother is serving the father, always very anxious and happily and whatever, doing so. And certainly the same thing towards the father is also serving and ready to do whatever is done. So I think that is important to see that amongst the family. If they just see that, or you're ready to just serve everybody else, but not in the family, that does not have the right effect. So it's important for them to see that the service attitude is in the family as well as outside. So service attitude.
Wonderful.
Yes, Prabhu? Is that true that I always serve you?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Like on Ekadasi before Mangal Arti.
That rumor is
every 2 weeks.
Don't start that again. Tulsi Rani had a question. Tulsi Rani, it's so nice to see you. It's been a long
Krishna!
time.
Haribo!
I can't say my heart is just overflooded with so much joy to be with all of these ecstatic devotees. I consider you all to be like my family, and I really miss all of you so dearly.
We miss you.
Your heart is always flooded with joy, Tulsi Rani.
Because you flood it. But then when you're not there, then it's just empty. So
Where
Anyway,
are you?
I'm in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple blocks from Tompkins Square Park and Matchless Gifts. So
Wow, wonderful.
variable. So I have a question. You mentioned earlier your ecstatic realizations on how money is all coming from Krishna and it's all Krishna's property, and that reliance on Krishna in terms of being like our maintainer. And this is something I've actually been thinking about a lot recently, in terms of like finding that balance where sometimes I wonder if like in the name of surrendering to Krishna, we're depending on Krishna to maintain us while we're like running around doing so much that we considered to be service, when maybe it's just not that devotional, but we're just like absorbed in doing stuff that we call service. But that, how do we know when we're just being irresponsible and not in the name of like depending on Krishna? I mean, I'm asking because this is something I've been reflecting on in my own life. I'm doing a lot of service and, you know, not really endeavoring to make money, but we're just like living month to month on like my husband's income while I'm, you know, skipping through the temple doing service. So I'm just wondering, yeah, I feel like it's an individual thing. Like if someone's really surrendered, and I was thinking like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's 6 principles of surrender starts with accepting everything favorable for Krishna's service and rejecting everything unfavorable. And I think, well, I'm not strictly following those principles in every aspect of my life. So then how can I, is it like asking service from Krishna instead of being in the mood of being a servant of Krishna, if we're expecting Krishna to maintain us when we're actually not fully surrendered?
Well, truth be told, Krishna is giving us and maintains us far more than we think. I mean, there's not, if there's not a blade of grass that moves without Krishna's sanction, there's nothing in our lives that is not, there's nothing in our lives upon which we're not dependent on Krishna. And so whatever we're doing, we're dependent on Krishna. Of course, we should try to be responsible and do our fair share to put ourselves in a position in life. But ultimately, everything is coming from Krishna, supplied by Krishna, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that he accepts, the principle of surrender is accepting Krishna as your only maintainer. His only, so that's the fact. Now, how we struggle with justifying, are we doing our part or not doing our part, that's our sincerity, as long as it's focused on trying to be grateful to Krishna. But so we do that, we go through our mental positions, but we should know that ultimately everything, without exception, is provided to us by Krishna. Even the breath with which we pray for Krishna to maintain us is given to us by Krishna. So the more we realize that, the better off we'll be. And the secondary considerations about how we live our life this way and that way will be understood as truly being secondary.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
We have a question from Padmavati. Would you like to ask your question, Padmavati?
And I think this will be our last question of the night, and we'll wrap it up.
Oh, no, we have some questions from the YouTube.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Padmavati.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much, Mita Kaylee and Amarita Prabhu, for facilitating this. And thank you, Mother Madhumati and Sesha Prabhu, for everything that you shared with us. It's very inspiring. So Mother Madhumati, you mentioned making, feeling grateful and appreciating Krishna consciousness as something that's fun. And how do you give your children that experience of Krishna consciousness being fun?
For me, it's just, I guess they see me happy and joyful in doing when I do things. So I think it naturally, what would you say, Shamadarshini? Maybe you can say that, how did I make Krishna consciousness fun for you, or?
Yeah, the temple, as well as, doing things as a family in Krishna consciousness made it fun as well. And I was blessed with really great friends who enjoyed doing things in Krishna consciousness. So association with parents and friends and community, an example. Yeah, it just came together to make a wholesome life experience as a child.
As long as they're not, I think with children, as long as they don't feel like that Krishna consciousness is something they have to do, or you have to chant your rounds, or you have to do this, or you have to do that, then it's no more fun. Children, if you let's do this thing, or let's do that, or we'll go to the temple, and that's just, that spirit is just so, it makes it fun. And I think that's important. And then to make sure that when they're doing things that are not Krishna conscious, so to speak, to enjoy with them that as well. I mean, they went through an age where they wanted to watch movies. So it was not like, oh my God, no, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to do that with you too. As a family, we're going to sit down and watch Bollywood movies, you know. Even Sesha Prabhu sat down for 3 hours to watch a Bollywood movie, you know. But can you imagine?
Did I?
He was in 3 hours samadhi.
I got the record.
But that's what it is fun, like for kids to see that the kids, when they're young, whatever their parents do, they do. And if you make it that you're happy, they're happy with it. And then when they get teenagers and they have their own agenda they like to do, then the parents go along with what they want to do. And they're happy that we're doing what they want to do. And then eventually they choose their own. When they become an adult, then they choose their own life, what they want to do. And then our responsibility is done, and you do what you want to do. We do what we want to do. You know, they become adults. So, okay, figure out your life, you know. So, yeah, it's fun. Who doesn't like kirtan? Everybody loves kirtan.
Gopal, flip it.
You know what I mean? People like to do that. Kids love that.
Excellent role models. Thank you. We have a couple of questions from Facebook. One is from Shamala. She's asking, why did you choose Sesha Prabhu? Sesha Prabhu, why did you choose Madhumati for your wife?
Oh, I love this question.
We should have thought of that. Good question.
Because on Janmashtami,
I was a good looking.
Yeah, on Janmashtami, she wore the silk sari.
Oh!
Wait, I missed it. On Janmashtami, what?
She wore the silk sari. I think she still has today.
I don't.
You don't have that anymore?
That's great. That's great.
That's not the reason.
Why? No, I thought this is a qualified. But actually, if you want to know the dry philosophical reason, I have this idea in my mind that Prabhupada and his preaching attracted all kinds of people, including very qualified young women. And I believe in my heart that he was very concerned about those ladies and that they be taken care of. So I feel that by marrying Madhumati, it's out of service to Prabhupada. Here's a qualified young lady that made so many sacrifices to come join him and serve Krishna. And Prabhupada
Wow.
looked out and said, "You marry her," which he did in the early days to devotees. To as out of duty to him, that's why I married Madhumati. That's the dry philosophical reason.
No love?
No, of course. That's that. As I said, there's many different layers here, or levels,
Yeah.
and so that's one level of duty that I'm thinking of.
Well,
that's really nice.
I'll tell you one thing. He told tell Shamala that he told Satsang Raj that I found somebody qualified to get married to. So I was qualified.
But I really love the appreciation you had for all the struggles you went through to come and join the temple. I mean, that's just amazing. And yeah, like you said, it's a very special level of the many reasons, I'm sure, why you chose Madhumati.
I will tell you something about marrying.
It's a force of karma. We've been married for 3 lives, according to certain astrologers.
Oh, yeah,
that's
really?
another level that's going on.
Wow, cool.
But I'll tell you one of the struggle about yes, it's yeah, he saw me with a nice sari or whatever, or thought qualified or whatever. But another level of purification about getting married on my side for me, while he was just enjoying getting married to me or whatever, but was and Satsang Raj told me that when he called me in his office, he said that, or maybe he's told me later on, that actually when this news will go to the temple, it was quiet for 2 weeks. And then it was told to all the devotees, but he warned me. He said that the ladies in the temple will stop speaking to you. He said, be aware of that. And so I went through such purification because what he told did happen. And you know, me as a person, I'm just such a jolly person and I have fun. And here all of a sudden, I didn't do anything. I didn't ask to get married to this person. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just doing what my spiritual master asked me to do. But literally that's what happened when it got announced in the temple room. And we weren't even there. We were told to go upstairs, and Mahakram Maharaj, who was there, he announced that Srila Prabhupada is going to get married to Madhumati, to Bhakti Madhu. My name was Bhakti Madhu. I was still a Bhakti. And after that, I went into our ladies, and devotees didn't speak to me. They all was just like, I was so hard. Wow. I tell you, it was. I went through so much purification that 1 year. I can't tell you. I can tell you different things I went through, but just talking about marriage and what it was, how purifying it was for me.
Was that because all the ladies wanted to marry Sesha Prabhu?
Yeah, it's like kind of like a new girl coming on the street, you know.
Wow.
And so all the other ladies want to get married to him, but he apparently said no. And then I come along, a new girl, and then I'm a Bhaktin, and there were so many Prabhupada disciples, ladies who want to get married. And so, yeah, you kind of feel bad, but it's not my, and one of the person who wanted to get married to is my Bhaktin leader. And can you imagine what happened to me? Oh my God, I can't tell you the purification I went through during that time. But you know,
you're being very kind by calling it purification.
It was purification, but you know, but there was one devotee who was very, very nice, who was very kind, and to this day I always love her and appreciate her, and that is Devahuti. Devahuti was one person who was just, she was just very kind and loving as a mother during that time to me. And so anyway, Hare Krishna. Shyamala, I hope that answers your question.
Good question, Shyamala.
Thank you for revealing your heart, Madhumati. We have another couple of questions from Facebook. One is from Prabir Prabhu, who's asking, who is your favorite kirtan leader and who is your favorite Srimad Bhagavatam class speaker?
That's a hard one.
Not for me.
Well, for him, is he said Prabhupada. For me, it's hard. I mean, kirtan leader. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. There are too many. Too many favorite singers and too many favorite Bhagavatam speakers.
Great answer.
Yes, it's like hard to pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's one from Rohini Kishordas. Since the departure of Srila Prabhupada, we hear that there has been a lot of factions created within the movement. So what are your views on how this can be completely healed?
Simple answer, putting Prabhupada in the center. Keeping Prabhupada in the center.
They would hear you.
I don't know. Did you hear that?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, that's the only
I
thing I
heard
would
that.
say.
Keeping Prabhupada in the center.
Yes.
Very nice. Thank you. And that wraps it up for the Facebook and YouTube questions. And does anybody else have any on Zoom?
It's a perfect way to end because Srila Prabhupada that's our whole goal is here and in our movement is to keep Prabhupada in the center. Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was
Congratulations
fun.
to all of you for doing such a good job and make us feel so easy. So thank you. And we're looking forward to the next ones that you're going to be reviewing.
Next month, we will have another one.
Thank you
We're
very
so
much.
grateful to you for doing this with us, to taking this journey with us, and for everyone who joined in tonight. Thank you. This is wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Take care, and we will see you the first Wednesday in January. So please join us.